All right, hi everyone, and thank you for joining today's presentation on using veterans with your Day of Service events. I just wanted to do a couple of quick reminders before we dive into things. First is just the NSCHC report. That's the background check report that's coming up. The deadline for that is Wednesday, November 30th. There's a link for that right there. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about that. I also have the list of the next kind of block of trainings that we have available for you. And you can see those right here, as well as I've put them and the registration links in the chat box, so that way you have those available if in case you want to register for them. So I'm going to hand things over to Stephanie over at Campus Compact in the Mountain West, and she is going to deliver today's presentation. So let's see, we need to upgrade you.
Great. Good morning, everyone, or whatever time of day it is where you are located. Happy Friday and happy Veterans Day to everyone. Thanks for taking time to hear and learn a little bit more about some possibilities around service projects that are focused on and with veterans, veteran family members, and other military affiliated folks. Again, my name is Stephanie Schooley. I'm Executive Director of Campus Compact of the Mountain West, and we focus on higher education institutions in the Campus Compact family that are in Colorado and Wyoming, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Before I pull up a PowerPoint presentation, which I know everyone gets excited about, I just wanted to, let me get my share screen on. Justin, this is going to kick you off, but I assume that's okay. Let me do view and full screen. All right, let me go back to the beginning. So we definitely will have, Justin is recording this so you can have access to it for later, and then you all will have access to the PowerPoint slides moving forward. It is a heavily linked PowerPoint slide because I didn't want to write out all of the information, but I wanted you all to have as many resources as possible as you are thinking about possibilities around service projects with the veterans focus area. If you have follow-up questions after the webinar and after you have a chance to look through the slides, feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is written right there. I'm happy to help brainstorm or think about ways in which you can implement or utilize some of these resources as you move forward. To go through, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview about Campus Compact of the Mountain West, only not because you wouldn't know about Campus Compact, but only so that you understand how we have positioned ourselves to be a veteran serving organization and why. And then we'll go through and look at some of our veteran-themed programs, so to give you an idea of how we have integrated some of our programs and services around civic and community engagement into the veteran space. Look at some options and possibilities around service projects that take place on campus, so focused on student veterans, and then some that would be partnerships with off-campus entities and organizations to give you a range of opportunities, I think, to get involved with veteran serving service projects, and then some follow-up and additional resources that hopefully will help to inform how your service projects take shape. So Campus Compact of the Mountain West, as I mentioned before, we are a group of 19 universities and colleges in Colorado and Wyoming. And really we do the same thing that all Campus Compact affiliates in our national organization does, which is really developing and creating programming that focuses on public good missions of higher education institutions. A lot of that work is around access and success in higher education, particularly for underrepresented student groups, career exploration and development through skilled volunteerism, campus and community partnership development, et cetera, et cetera. Beginning in about 2013, the end of 2013, we started having conversations or hearing from faculty and staff at our participating campuses that they were seeing a drastic increase in the number of veterans that were showing up in their classes. And for staff on campuses, that they were starting to hear from student support services that there were this group of students that, that needed something slightly different than traditional students. And so through a series of conversations, we started bringing people together to ask, okay, where are the gaps in support services that are focused really on this influx of student veterans? I was reading earlier today, actually it was yesterday afternoon, that there are over 2 million post 9/11 veterans in higher education right now. So because of the drawdowns in Iraq and Afghanistan and all of the operations that have been cutting back forces, higher education is really becoming a transition stop for veterans as they exit from their military service and before they're going back into their civilian lives. In order to be able to address this, there are lots of campuses that we work with that we're saying we don't have the infrastructure, we don't really understand this group of students. They trend much more toward non-traditional students, tend to be older, tend to already have families, and perhaps are already employed in the civilian workforce, but are coming back to use their GI Bill benefits. And really we're struggling with trying to figure out how do we best support this group of students. So in order to address this, we went through and did some research. And again, this is really just to help you guys understand that particularly if you're partnering with veterans groups that are on campus, it's good to understand, I think, some of the specific challenges that, that affect student veterans in particular. And what I'm going to do is show out of all of this, and these are all links to different resources that talk about, like here, post-secondary education outcome measures that are specific to student veterans, a Million Records project that was a pretty massive data collection around the specific needs and successes and challenges of student veterans. But primarily, I'm going to talk about the principles of excellence. So Obama came out with an executive order as they were seeing that there were a lot of particularly proprietary schools that were engaging in some unethical practices around the recruitment of veterans into their institutions, because with every veteran, there comes dollars with the GI Bill benefits. And there were a significant portion of veterans who were being aggressively recruited into programs where they would use up all of their benefits and then have a lot of difficulty transitioning into the workforce, or their degrees weren't considered valid. So the principles of excellence were really a pathway, a guide for higher education institutions to ethically be able to provide access to higher education, to support student veterans, and to ensure that they were persisted through graduation, such that we were really giving a fair shake to student veterans as they were transitioning into higher education. So, excuse me, what I'm going to show you right now are some of the primary, these are the 8 keys is what they are called, from the principles of excellence. And some of these I think you will look at and say, well, that's not so different from any other student group. The challenge is that student veterans were being targeted in an unethical way. And so these are the keys that campuses are asked to follow. So one is there's really a culture issue on the campus to provide comprehensive supports for veterans, not just in their educational attainment, but also in their general well-being. So having services on campus that support the whole person, the whole student, with their particular needs. Leadership support, so ensuring that it is a fully supportive system of stakeholders that are lending expertise and supporting efforts around student veterans. Early alert system, and this is much more on the mental health side of things, but to make sure that if there are indicators that a veteran is either academically not going to be succeeding and is leaning toward dropping out or stopping out, and or if there are issues that are happening in financial aid where we need to, sometimes the GI Bill benefits don't come in until after the semester has started and folks are being left homeless and unable to pay for basic services because of the timing of different financial systems, making sure that campuses are aware of those challenges and are able to prevent some of the bad consequences of them later. Centralized space, a lot of this is there are now veterans lounges, veterans rooms, study areas that are kind of centralized spaces for veterans in which they can convene and be among folks that they feel comfortable with. Local coordination, so this is really the campus community partnership piece to make sure that everything is integrated together. Use of data, which is a significant challenge for most campuses because there are several ways in which veterans are not counted on campuses, particularly if they transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year institution, and it's all based on self-reporting veteran status, so there are some challenges around that. Professional development, which is a really big area, and this is really a cultural competency piece for faculty and staff for how they can more successfully support students that are on campus and in their classrooms. And then lastly, sustainability, which should be at the bottom of every list we make for any program or pathway for any type of students, to make sure that these are, 1, evidence-based practices, and 2, that they are integrated into the institution so that they can be sustained. These 8 principles are really the foundation of any sort of student veteran support or programming that's happening in higher education. And again, the reason that I'm going into some of this background is that this is how, as you think about your MLK project, I would encourage you, particularly since we are all part of higher education institutions, to look through, whether it's this list or others, how can this MLK Day of Service project really be integrated into longer term strategies for how your institution either is providing supports for students that are veterans on campus, or for how it's partnering with external organizations that provide support to veterans in the community. All right, so going back to our happy PowerPoint presentation. And again, all you have to do is unmute yourself. If you have questions as we're moving along, feel free to just shout it out. It's very informal. So with that background in mind, Campus Compact of the Mountain West began a program called Second Mission, which the big SEC is Service, Education, and Careers, focused on student veteran access and success. And sorry, that's like one of those things where I have to actually choose that I want to share with you. And really the purpose of Second Mission is to provide some comprehensive services that really look at community engagement as a strategy for student veteran access and success in higher education. And there are some resources on our website that if you want to go to, ccmountainwest.org, and again, it's all linked, feel free. Our primary program is the Second Mission VISTA program. Lots of you are probably familiar with VISTA programs. And this, like all of our Second Mission programs, focuses on, 1, peer-to-peer mentoring and other strategies that help for student veterans to persist in higher education. That also includes some professional mentoring, things like the Boots to Suits program. We have some community engagement opportunities, particularly through the arts. So the Telling Project we hosted through the Veterans Artist Program a couple of years ago. We've had a Veteran Artist Showcase. There have been lots of opportunities for folks to get involved that way. We have some resources. There's a webinar down here that there's a link to. That's more just serving veterans on campus. And lots of different materials and campus-based resources for veterans. So this is really our response to trying to help veterans serving offices on campuses to use community engagement as a tool or a strategy to help and build the student veteran community, to help build and develop systems that support students that are veterans as they persist through to graduation, hopefully, and to help with the transition from higher education into the civilian workforce. For lots of the veterans we're seeing on campuses, this is their transition 101 stop. And so a lot of these skills that they're learning and ways of connecting back to their civilian life in general, they're learning through higher education. We also found that in Colorado, for example, It kind of fluctuates between 9th and 10th in the nation for the number of student veterans that are returning, particularly post 9/11 veterans that are coming back into higher education. For the states that you're in, it could be a smaller or larger percentage. There's some states that see a lot of veterans transitioning and not so many for others, but regardless, the trend is toward campuses responding to this influx through some of these infrastructure development and supports that they're putting into place. So moving forward, for a lot of folks, the research and the studies that have been done or that they're doing right now have to do with how are student veterans different from traditional students, and what are the specific programs and services that are needed to be able to effectively support student veterans. I'm not going to go through this list, but I wanted to make sure you all had access to it. Again, because Campus Compact is a higher education organization, I think it's important to understand that there are some opportunities that exist both with veterans on your campuses and in the community that are very specific to a higher education context. So these are lots of resources where you can go through and look at some of the differences they've done. ACE has done a lot of work, American Council on Education, around veterans and service members and how they're engaging in college and university life and their educational pathways and how those can be supported. Higher Education Today, this is really just looking at those lines of support, the continuum between access to graduation for post 9/11 veterans, the transitional challenges of students in higher education, or of student veterans in higher education, and then this one from NASPA, which is looking at success of student veterans and active duty military students. So I encourage you to spend some time looking at it because it may help to inform as you think about what are the specific needs, community needs, whether that's on campus or not, for veterans in your community. I think that this is a good series of resources to become informed about all that. Okay, so going into the specifics of what could this look like to have an MLK Day of Service project that's focused on student veterans and veterans in the community. The first series of resources here is serving veterans on campus. And what I would encourage, if there's only one thing you take away from this webinar, which hopefully it's not, but is that regardless of whether you're planning a service project that's going to be for veterans on campus or within the community, please reach out to your Veteran Support Services office or your student veteran organization on campus and connect with them. If you don't have a Veteran Support Services office per se, there's going to at least be some group of people that are certifying officials or that otherwise are working most directly with your student veteran population. More and more there are offices that are set up that have more extensive services than just being certifying officials for benefits. And on lots of campuses, the student veteran organization, if it's not wildly active, it exists. And I would encourage you to use that as your first stop for partnership development around projects. Again, whether it's on campus or not, it's a group, it's a way for you all to connect with one another in a way that's very meaningful around this National Day of Service. If you're curious whether or not your campus has a student veteran organization, this link to SVA has all of the chapters across the country, and you can search and you can learn more about what SVA does. It's a student group like most student groups on your campuses. It's just focused on veterans. We have a lot of Veteran Support Service offices that are throughout the region, and I just chose to focus on Western states because those are the ones that I know the best. And again, these are just examples of what it is that they do and how you may be able to partner with them. And I'm going to go to University of Colorado, Denver. Whoops. You'd think after like this many times doing Zoom, it would just be so natural to me. So there are some veteran serving offices, like at Arizona State University, they have a huge veteran serving office. And it goes through anything from student veteran academic success to looking at transfer credits. They have a Vet Success on Campus. They have a whole bunch of events that you can connect with them on. There are a lot of these offices that are going to be planning stuff around National Days of Service because they have AmeriCorps Vista members, or they may have AmeriCorps members on campus that are coordinating a lot of that. There are tons. Here's their Student Veterans Club. They have an alumni chapter. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to be able to call up and say, hey, we have some resources around an MLK Day of Service project, and we'd like to partner with you. What are your thoughts about this? And it could be that you're connecting with the Student Veterans Club, and that's something that they can do to encourage their members and family members of their members to get involved. There is also, when you go back here, projects like at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, which is in a very, very highly militarized community in Colorado Springs. And this is an example of a service project that they do called the CU, which is University of Colorado Heroes Clinic. So they partner with their School of Dental Medicine, and they offer days in which veterans and family members can come in and have all free of charge dental health screenings and services done. So this is an example of a service project that would be partnering with an academic program or school still focused on veterans and in partnership with their veteran serving office, where you can really be providing some direct services for student veterans at your institution. And this is a wildly popular program, this Heroes Clinic, and they have it across the CU system. So it's in Colorado Springs, but they've made sure that it is at all 4 campuses, which is really quite awesome. Another one that I will show you is at California State University in Fullerton. And I'm going to, and this is their Veterans Resource Center. And again, for your institutions, you may already have partnerships with these offices, but sometimes the community engagement folks, or what we've found, at least in Colorado and Wyoming, is that the community engagement folks on campus and the veteran serving office folks on campus sometimes did not know one another and had not really thought to partner on some projects. And so it's been really quite powerful to have those offices and those groups of people start partnering around community engagement and volunteerism and all sorts of other access and persistence programs that we have. So for here, they go through and they've got a whole link to programs and services. They obviously do benefits. Their SVA is on here, which is always good to connect with. And then they have external programs and resources. So hopefully this gives you an idea of at least where to start looking when you're thinking about partnering on campus for student or for veterans for the service projects. Here, there are some examples of veteran-focused service projects, so not just the examples of the offices themselves, but of what folks have been doing. So let's go to University of Wisconsin-Madison, I think. We're going there. And look at this. So this is University of Wisconsin-Madison, and they did a Military Kids University. They hosted, this actually took place over a couple of days, but a program like this could be easily implemented at your institution as a way of, one, providing services for kids of military service members and veterans, two, for helping to connect with the mission of your institution around access and success for folks that are not entering higher ed now, but to get them on your campus and excited about going to college. And for this, you could partner with pretty much any of the departments. This one was a science-based Military Kids University, so they had military family members come in and they had faculty and students just basically let the kids have a day of fun and hands-on science learning, which is a pretty neat thing. For this one, again, it was more of a camp, but you could do this in a 1 or 2 day exercise as well. Another possibility, we will look at University of Central Arkansas, if it will come up. Sometimes the link Well, I'll have to fix that. What we will do then is go down to the last one because that one's not coming up. Serving those who served. And there we go. And this is really a toolkit from this one's based in Illinois, but from their VA. And it's a service project guide and resource toolkit all around service with and for veterans. So it's 12 pages. I'm not going to go through all of it, but there are a ton of links in there that they provide really specific information around how to pull together a service project for and with veterans, links to if you're a higher education institution, what that could look like. So it's a pretty comprehensive list of possibilities for on-campus service projects that are focused on veterans. Any questions so far from folks? I can keep rattling off for days. Okay, we'll keep going then. The next piece is around serving veterans who are off campus. So this is, hopefully you're still going to have as a starting point connecting with your Veterans Support Services office regardless, or your student veteran organization locally. But if you're wanting to or thinking about partnering with an organization that is off campus and where service would be off campus, this is a list. By no means is it a comprehensive list of all of the veteran serving organizations that are out there with whom you can partner, but I went through and picked out the ones that, number one, have a national scope so that regardless of where your institution is, there should be some sort of contact for you to have with all of these organizations. The other thing to recognize is, and this is not to be too dramatic, but there are some organizations out there that are not as reputable, and particularly when you're talking about veteran support organizations, we have run across in our work with the Second Mission Program some organizations that didn't deliver very well on their mission. And so over time, we've developed our own list of high quality partnerships, and this is a reflection of that. So it's a bit subjective and is by no means comprehensive, but hopefully will be instructive into some of the possibilities. So going first, the Mission Continues is a pretty awesome organization, and we've partnered with them over the past several years on having Mission Continues fellows that serve through our office, but they're on campus. And they organize service projects across the country. They've got service platoons, and they've got local leadership for that. And really, they are consistently looking for partnerships, particularly with higher education, because they have a focus on trying to engage the student veteran organizations in the service projects that they are coming up with. It's a really great group of people. They're very responsive, and they mobilize like nobody's business. So if you're looking to have a service project where it's a little bit more like, hey, we have an idea for doing something, or we can, convene a whole bunch of people to show up, I would highly encourage you to get in touch with the Mission Continues. Beyond the MLK Day of Service, they are really, really great partners, again, for their fellowship program. And what that does is it's focused on post 9/11 combat veterans. So it's a smaller subset of the student veterans on your campus, but they offer stipended volunteer positions that are 20 hours a week for 26 weeks. And it's around an $8,000 stipend, which is not a federal stipend. It just goes directly to the student to support their service. And we've had Mission Continues fellows working or serving that are student veterans throughout our campuses in Colorado and Wyoming, and they're focused on developing their student veteran organization, focused on connecting and identifying resources in the community that are specific to student veterans. So it's a really great opportunity to get some additional financial assistance for some of your student veterans and to have service projects that are focused on that. So the Mission Continues, they get a big thumbs up. And and again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I want to just organize or show you some examples of some. Team Red, White, and Blue, they primarily do service projects, but they primarily convene people together for days of service around Veterans Day, Memorial Day. They do putting the flags out at our national cemetery here. They also do the runs, and they get people together to go hiking. So it's a little bit more of a support organization to get like a social organization for veterans. However, they also do service projects. So it could be a good group of folks to immediately, especially for getting community volunteers involved in your service projects. They would be a great resource for anyone out there. All right, Volunteers of America, they have quite a robust veterans focus, at least here in Colorado, and I'm assuming that it's going to be national. This is the Colorado branch, so just as not warning, but take what you see on here as being kind of local, more local. They do food and nutrition. Their primary focus area is around meeting the basic needs of veterans in our community. So they do a lot of work around veterans homelessness. They do a lot of work around basic food and nutrition. Here you see housing and emergency services, client services, which are much more around getting connected with sort of the basics of getting off the streets and making sure people are safe when they're and not on the streets. So they have a pretty robust veteran service program catalog. And again, you'd have to connect with your branch that's in your state or in your region. But I know that for Volunteers of America, it's a big priority for them. And they're a pretty well-established organization, so they could mobilize pretty quickly as well. Going down the list a little bit further, Points of Light, the Community Blueprint Network. So Points of Light has a veterans and military families focus area as well. And the Community Blueprint really is a network of organizations that have all signed on as being veteran serving or having a veterans focus. And they have created a toolkit of sorts for working with and creating positive measurable outcomes for military affiliated folks and their families. And this one, first of all, you can choose and go in and search to see who the Community Blueprint organizations are within your network. For example, Campus Compact of the Mountain West is part of the Community Blueprint, even though we're not a strictly veteran serving organization. Metro Volunteers here in the Denver metro area is part of the Community Blueprint. So there are often multiple organizations that are all connected with the Community Blueprint. And because it's through Points of Light, they have a very serious emphasis on days of service and on partnering with other folks in the community to deliver services to veterans. So I would encourage you, they've got the toolkit here, so there's resources and tools. The Blueprint, Community Blueprint Network, you can go, hopefully your state is not grayed out here, and learn more about the partners that are in your community. This is a good resource for a lot of different things, but it's nice to be able to have multiple organizations that are all focused on veteran services kind of at your fingertips. All right, moving right along. United We Serve is through the Corporation for National and Community Service and their partnerships. They've got a whole bunch of resources on there and some toolkits for planning service projects. Wounded Warrior Homes is an offshoot of Wounded Warriors, which most people are familiar with, service members that come back and have both visible and not visible battle scars and wounds. And Wounded Warrior Homes is essentially like a Habitat for Humanity that focuses on veterans and specifically wounded veterans. They have days of service where they have big groups, teams of people come in and do construction and build houses for wounded warriors. And it's again, they have a very vast network. It's a very well-established organization. So that would be another good partner across the country. The last one on this page I want to show is Stand Down for Homeless Veterans. They have stand down events across the country. Most of them are pretty organic, and really the stand down, it's an opportunity to be able to focus on homeless veterans and the different services and let me scroll down, services and things that we can provide in a one-stop, one day of service. And I put this on here because, whether or not you are going to continue partnering around veterans initiatives after your MLK Day of Service, the stand down events are a really great opportunity to partner with local United Ways. It could be Volunteers of America, your campus food pantry, etc., and be able to have a really big day that's all focused on getting resources in the hands of homeless veterans, making sure that they have food security. There are a whole bunch of ways you could partner with academic programs at your institutions to do this. And it's a little bit of a larger undertaking, I would say, because unless there's a stand down already planned in your community, it can require a much more extensive network of partnerships to make it happen. However, they're pretty impactful, and they've been doing them more and more in cities and counties and states to be able to address homelessness in the veteran population. And this is again on the CNCS site, but they have a whole bunch of tips for how to host the stand down event. They've got helpful resources, step-by-step manual on how to do a stand down. So there's a lot of resources here if this is something that you want to think about doing, and particularly if you wanted to do it in partnership with your student veteran organization. They're pretty amazing events. Okay, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint for a second and just pause. Are there any questions that folks have about any of these resources so far? I know it's a lot, but Okay. This next one is really just a list of more general resources for other ideas and that are slightly different than more traditional direct service days. From combat to classroom, this is again from the University of Colorado Springs, is essentially it's a cultural competency manual for faculty and staff on campus around serving and working with and teaching student veterans. And the reason I put it on here is because they have done some, and I think that it would be something that would be wonderful to do as part of your MLK Day of Service, and planning out from there how you can sustain that focus area for your institution. It's a great way to convene together faculty and staff around things like, how to understand student veterans in your classroom, how to be a veteran-friendly instructor. It goes through a whole bunch of background information about the particulars of student veterans in a way that is thoughtful and doesn't categorize all student veterans as being the same. But it does go through some key points. We've been having more and more of these kind of cultural competency trainings at institutions of higher education around student veterans, and it has been really powerful to witness the transformation of faculty members particularly, and then staff members that are working with student support services, and their feeling of confidence in being able to effectively address the educational and other support needs of student veterans. I'm sure you all have access to this already, but CNCS has a whole bunch of toolkits for service projects by focus area. So if you scroll down on that page to the veterans service area, then for focus area, they've got a whole bunch of links to different toolkits for designing service projects specific to veterans. 10 Ways to Support and Honor Veterans is a blog article, but I thought it's a good way to think of other ways in which there are service projects that maybe, again, one-stop service projects, somewhat volunteer events, but that could be pretty easy to coordinate and organize and would still have a positive impact in your community. And then this organization, the Coalition for Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans, is really focused on post 9/11 veterans, by no means are all veterans on campus post 9/11. There are lots of Vietnam era and moving forward, but increasingly they're post 9/11 veterans. And so that is an organization that provides a lot of resources. They also have service project days, community engagement focus. And if you're looking for particularly post 9/11 combat veterans, which is a slightly different category, that they provide a lot of really good resources to be able to work and serve with those folks. So that is what I have got for now. What questions do folks have, or thoughts or ideas that you've already started bouncing around in your head for service projects?
Hey, Stephanie, there's a couple of folks who are listed as viewers. Since you're the host, can you move them over to panelists so that way if they want to unmute themselves, they can ask questions that way?
Sure. You guys are promoted. How many times do you get to do that on a webinar? Any questions or things that you've already thought about doing and just want to talk about it, talk it through, see what would work? Nope. As I mentioned before, you'll have access to the PowerPoint slides, so you can click through it and figure out what's helpful and what's not helpful. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. I'm by no means an expert around veterans services or service projects. However, there are a lot of resources out there, and we've spent quite a bit of time going through them to try to figure out the ones that would yield really good projects and good partnerships. And for sure, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So feel free to use me or whoever else you want to, but as a resource. And again, I highly encourage you to get in touch first and foremost with your Veteran Support Service office and your student veteran organization, because they'll be good allies and partners moving forward. So the question is, do you know any videos that we could use to show? Are you talking about videos that are like for the cultural competency piece that would help to, because I have a really great one for that. I think if you just click on the unmute, then you can just ask too. Okay, well, while that's happening, if you're talking about videos, let me just show you something really quick that could be a good, on our second mission, this is the ccmountainwest.org. If you scroll down, so there are a few different videos that are on here that we use in our that we've used in workshops before and in cultural competency, like trainings for faculty and staff, and to just get people thinking about the specific needs of veterans. This one, this Kyle Hausman-Stokes video, is one that was made actually as part of, I think it was funded actually through the VA, so it's a tiny bit cheesy at the end, but regardless, it's a powerful video, and it shows this guy, it's his own story, and he's in it. And it's just about his transition back from being in a battle zone into a classroom and dealing with benefits and how things don't work out and some of the kind of mental health challenges. It's a really awesome video. So I encourage you to click on that, check it out first, obviously, and then use it as much as you'd like. And then a couple of these other videos are really more for training purposes, but they could be good resources for you as well. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but that's all on the CC Mountain West /second-mission website. Let's see. We met with our vets, had some ideas, but I didn't think they would like to do them. Okay, well, that happens too. So for this question, this is pretty specific. So talking about some ideas to engage vets, but that didn't seem like it was going to be a good connection, show a video to engage talking with them. I honestly start with this now after video, because this talks about and really is focused on how higher education and then external veteran serving organizations are and are not supporting students as they transition into higher education. So start there, and then feel free to email me because I can ask around too and see if there are other resources that folks. The other thing I can show you though that is pretty cool. Let me see if I can find it up here. So the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs also has, where is it? Current students. We did a digital veteran storytelling project with our Mission Continues fellow that was at UCCS. And he went through and interviewed and then created a digital story for their student veteran organization. And this is, I think, another video that you may be able to show, because really it's talking about, how do we understand student veterans as individuals, but also as a group of students that perhaps need something a little bit different than your average student. So this is under that UCCS link, and it'll be in the PowerPoint, and you just click on Digital Veteran Stories, and you can look at that as well. So let me just see on the chat. Oh, that's off campus. Yeah, definitely go for those two things, the digital stories and that Kyle Hausman video. I would start there for sure, and then email me if you need other resources. Other folks, other resources that would be helpful, even if I don't have them now, I can dig them up. All right. Well, I think that's all that I've got. If you need to get in touch with me, my information is on the PowerPoint slides, and I'm sure that Justin can provide other detailed information about future webinars and other supports for your MLK Day of Service grant. And thanks for taking the time on a Friday morning.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie, for taking some time off and to deliver this training. Just so that way everyone knows, I certainly will be sending out the slides for this as well as the recording. But then also you provide a lot of great links to toolkits and videos and that sort of thing. And I will link to those on the MLK training website as well. So that way those are, you don't have to dig for those through all the links and everything like that. But thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop recording now and have a great Veterans Day and a great weekend.